All right, now what we're going to need to talk about is something called comparison operators. Don't let the term scare you. It's actually quite simple. Comparison operators are probably exactly what you'd expect them to be once you give it a little thought. Things like less than, greater than or equal to, less than or greater than or less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. And then there are unique ones, unique to JavaScript, like equals equals, or triple equals, or not equals, or not equals equals. Okay, these are comparison operators. And what these quite literally do is compare two values in an expression. An example would be 8 is greater than 6. This is comparing the numbers 8 and 6. But think about it. In comparing these two, what do you think this statement is going to return when I hit enter? It has to return or evaluate to something. It has to evaluate to something. Well, it's checking, is 8 in fact greater than 6? Is 8 actually greater than 6? And if 8 is greater than 6, it will return true. If I write 8 is less than 6, it will evaluate to false. Okay, this is important. These comparison operators, when comparing two values or multiple values, will always evaluate to either true or false. Either the expression that you have written is true or it is false. False, true, false, true. Okay? And we're not restricted to numbers, of course. I can write Evan equals to Evan, and I get false. Okay, this is comparing two strings to see if they're equal. And despite the fact that these strings have the same characters, the JavaScript engine is very case sensitive. So a lowercase Evan is not the same as an uppercase Evan. However, Evan equals equals Evan returns true. Or 7 equals equals 7 returns true. Okay, it's comparing 7 and 7. Are they equal? Yes. Therefore, it evaluates to true. Things to look out for are things like this, or rather this. Let me clear the console. Okay, is the number 7 equal to a string which contains 7? It is, in fact, true. And it's true because I'm using that double equals sign. Okay, that double equals sign is looking for the same value on either side of the expression. So this 7, the number, has a value of 7. And this string, which contains 7, also has a value of 7 to these double equals. Okay, but if I use triple equals looks for what's called strict equality. And it's going to want both sides of its expression to be not only the same value, but also the same type of data. And these are not that. We're dealing with a number and a string. So it will return false. This is something to be aware of and to watch out for. There are situations where you will want to use 3 equal signs for strict equality, and most of the time you will probably use double equals. Okay? So you do need to be aware of this. If you use double equals and you rely on that information, make sure you're aware of exactly what data type each individual side of the expression is, because maybe that will be important later on. If you want to ensure that something happens only if two things are of the same data type, you might want to use triple equals. Okay, you'll see plenty of examples of different use cases for each as we move forward, but not today. Right now, that is just something to bear in mind and to look out for. Other comparison operators, less than and equal to and greater to, are self-explanatory. Less than or equal to should be pretty self-explanatory. Not equals 4 does not equal 3 is going to return true, because it is true that 4 is not 3. 4 does not double equals. The string 4 also returns true, because it is true that the number 4 is not in fact strictly equal to the string 4. Okay, if strict equality is confusing to you, don't worry about it too much right now. Don't focus on that particular issue right now. That will clear itself up over time if it's still fuzzy, and you will have opportunities to clear it up in class. But understand that these comparison operators will always evaluate a statement to true or false. And they are not confined to a single value on either side. If I do arithmetic, 4 plus 12 is greater than 2 times 8. It's going to return false, because 16 is not greater than 16. It evaluates both of these individual expressions first, and we get 16 is greater than 16, which is false. If I enter the same line, greater than or equals to, we get true. Okay, so you can include long lines of arithmetic or concatenation, or you can use variables on either side of an expression which uses a comparison operator. And the whole statement will, without fail, evaluate to true or false. That's the important point here. The reason why that is important is because we will often use comparison operators and statements like this in what are called if and else statements. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of examples of that. Let's say we have if 4 is greater than 3, then we're going to console.log 4 is greater than 3. Else console.log, let's instead change this to else statement ran and if statement ran. Okay, this is the syntax for an if statement or an else statement. We have if followed by the condition which we are testing in parentheses. The statement inside will evaluate to either true or false. If the statement inside is true, then the code contained inside the curly braces following the if statement will run. If this returns false, this code will not run, and we will instead jump to the else statement, and this code will run. So let's go ahead and test this real fast. If I reload my page, we get if statement ran to the console. Now let's change the comparison operator to less than. 4 is less than 3. That should return false, so we should see this statement run. And that's exactly what happens. Else statement ran. Okay, so we rely on if and else statements a lot in JavaScript to run certain chunks of code under certain conditions. We run certain code under certain conditions. If a certain condition is met and returns true, we run the chunk of code contained inside our if statement. If it returns false, then we run the chunk of code contained in our else statement. That's if and else statements at their most basic. Okay, and I can actually just write a boolean in here, if false, and it's going to automatically run the else statement, or if true, and it will automatically run the if statement. You would not do this in real life, but this is meant to demonstrate how which batch of code actually executes. Okay, and once more, the syntax for these statements are if, followed by parentheses, which contain an expression that evaluates to true or false. And then after that expression, we have opening curly brace, the code we want to run, and after all of it, closing curly brace. You do not require an else statement. Else statements are not necessary. If we do not have an else statement and the if statement returns false, then simply nothing will happen. Okay? We'll talk more about if-else statements in a bit, but chew on that for a little while.